In this coding segment, what we're going to do is we're going to enable our client to join a chat room. And we'll set up both the message from our client to the server, and we'll have the server with the functionality to be able to add a client to a specific chat room. So let's start by looking at our client side and looking at the JavaScript that's there. So we're going to go into our public directory and our JavaScript, into our JavaScript, and let's look at our JavaScript function that is present on our client side. And what we're going to do is, let's see, for starters, I'm going to go ahead and remove the code that puts the username into the web page. We demonstrated that we had that okay, so I'm going to go ahead and delete that. All right, and now once we have our username, let's go ahead and establish which chat room that we want to join. And we will say that we'll set up a new variable called chat room, and there's just going to be one chat room that you can join right now. So I'll just call it one room. I really want to say one room to rule them all, but I won't. All right, so we'll join the chat room one room, and what we'll do from there then is we'll need to say once our web page has been completely loaded, we are going to join a room. All right. In jQuery, the way that we run a command when our web page is completely loaded is we do $, open parenthesis, function, open close parenthesis, curly brackets, and then whatever we want to run when it comes time to for our web page to be loaded. We're going to create a variable which is going to contain the payload of the message that we want to send to our server. We're going to initialize that with nothing initially. Let's see. So our payload is going to start as an empty variable. And then what we're going to do is we are going to set some elements of our payload so we can tell our server what it is that we want to do. We're going to say that we want to say which room do we want to join. Well, that's going to be payload.room chat room. And then we want to say, well, what is our username? What's the username that wants to join it? So we'll say payload.username, and that's going to equal username that we pulled off of our URL or made anonymous if necessary. And now we're just going to send a message to the browser so that we can see that everything went okay in our browser if it did. And we'll say console log 3 stars, single quote 3 stars, and we'll say client log message colon, and we'll do / single quote join underscore room / single quote payload, and we will specify, let's say payload colon space single quote plus JSON dot stringify payload. Stringify payload. All right, and what that's going to do is it's going to output a message to our browser's console to let us know that we actually ran this code. And after we do that, then we're going to send our message to the server. We're going to say socket.emit with the message join underscore room, and we'll send it the payload. All right, curly bracket and parenthesis and semicolon. Okay, so in that simple bit of code, we are sending a message to the server indicating that we are interested in joining a room. Now, at some point, the server is going to respond to us, and so we need to be ready to handle a response back. And so when the server responds to us and we say socket.on, and we'll say the message that we'll get back is going to be join room underscore response. And what are we going to do when we get that response back is we'll read the payload that we get back from the server, and we'll say if the payload result equals single quote fail, then we'll just send a message. We'll just put an alert box up, because what are we going to do with the payload.message? And then we will return from this function. And if we make it past here, then what we'll do is we're going to add a message into our DOM indicating that we successfully joined the chat room. So to do that, we'll use jQuery. We'll do a $, parenthesis, single quote, # hashtag messages. So this is the place where we previously put our username. And what we're going to do is we'll append, and what we'll do is we will append a new paragraph tag. And in that paragraph tag, we will say new user joined the room, colon, space, single quote, plus payload.username, whoever the server tells us just joined the room, plus single quote, close the paragraph tag, single quote, parenthesis, semicolon. We'll append that, and then we will have our curly brace and our parenthesis and our semicolon. So we send a message to the server, and if everything goes well, the server will send something back, and then we will post that message. Now we can do that, and if our server is running, let's run our server. And we have a problem because something's wrong on our server side, which I wasn't expecting. Well, it says cannot find a particular module. Am I already running the server? If I try and load my web page, nothing comes up, so I'm not running the server. Oh, I'm sorry. That's not the right place where my file is. Let's try that again. All right, and what I want to do is run my server and then reload my lobby and just take a look at my console, inspect elements, take a look at my console and see, okay, great. So the server said a website connected to the server, but what I don't see is I don't see a client log message. That concerns me, so I'm going to reload this web page to make sure I'm not using cached behavior and see this time, yes, that's what I want to see. Join room payload, great. So now, not surprisingly, I'm going to stop my server. Our client sent a message, but our server wasn't ready to receive the message. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to change our server code so that the server is ready to receive the message. And this is just a little bit tedious. We're going to edit our server code. We've now got our server.js file open. And just like previously we had a message for our socket disconnect, let's add a new message. And we're going to start by just copying those 3 lines, pasting them below. And instead of the disconnect message, we're going to respond to the join room message. And I'm going to put a comment here which describes what it is that we are expecting on our join room command. And I'm going to say that this is the join room command. And then remember, this is on our server side. And so the payload, when someone calls this command, is what we expect is we expect that we will receive something that has a room with the room to join, and someone will have a username, and that will be the user name of person joining. Okay, so that's what the server needs to send us. That's good. And then we will say, okay, these stars annoy me. All right, and then join room response, which is what we send back to the client. We will say what the result is, and if it is a success, then we will also pass back the room that was joined, and we will pass back the username, that joined, and then the last thing we'll pass back is the membership, which will be the number of people in the room, including the new one. All right, or if it fails, we will send back the message fail and a message with the failure message. All right, so that's just a comment describing what we're about to do. Okay, now when we actually receive the join room message, we're going to get the payload. And in that payload, we're going to have to pull out all the different bits that were received. So the first thing we'll do is when we receive a message to join the room, let's log that. And we'll say that the server received a command, and that command was join room, and we received the payload. So that will send a message to the console on the server side so that we can see what's happening. And we need to spell payload correctly. All right, and now we're going to go through each one of the different parameters that should be passed into payload, and we're going to check to make sure that it is well formed. And so we're going to first check to make sure that the payload itself is well formed. So we'll say if undefined type 3 equals type of payload, or payload is equal to null, then we're going to create an error message which is equal to join room had no payload, command aborted. Then we're going to log that error message, and we're going to send back the error message back to the client that connected to the server. So we'll say the join room response is that result equals fail, and the message, spell result right, is the error message that we just made. Curly brackets, parenthesis, semicolon, and if that happens, then afterwards we're going to return. And then semicolon to end our if statement. And now we're going to go through and we're going to check each one of our parameters in turn. So we will create a variable for the room that the person wants to join. We'll say that equals the payload.room. Now I'm going to copy this code that we just got with the payload and put it here to speed it up. I'm going to say if undefined type of room or not room, then the error message is join room didn't, if you have a single quote you need to escape it, didn't specify a room, command aborted. All right, we'll log that error message and we'll return. Okay, great. And now we'll do the same thing with our username. So I'm going to copy that and paste that, and I'll say who wants to join, var username equals payload username, if undefined equals type of username or not username, then say join room didn't specify a username, and then we'll return. And then if everything went okay, then we have our room and our username, and we'll say socket.join room. That will put the client that asked to join a room into a room, and we will now check to make sure that that worked okay. And so we're going to grab the code above and paste it down. And this time we'll say var room object equals io.sockets.adapter.rooms subroom, square brackets room. And then we'll say if undefined type of room object or not room object, then we'll say join room couldn't create a room. It's an internal error. And then command aborted. And if that happens, we'll log the error message, send it back, return, All that's good. All right, and then if we've gotten this far, then everything was a success. So we'll say var number of clients equals room object dot length. And instead of having an error, we'll say our new success data is going to equal curly bracket. We'll say the result equals success. And the room equals the room that we got. And the username is going to be the username that we got. And the membership size is going to be equal to num clients plus 1 for the person that just joined. And then we will close our success data. And after that, we will send back a message. We'll say io.sockets.in subroom.emit join room response success data. Pass that to them. And then we'll log the whole thing and we'll say log room plus single quote was just joined by space single quote plus username plus single quote. Actually, that's probably good enough. Plus username. Username, parenthesis, semicolon, and then clean up all the way down to that curly bracket. And clean up down here. And so now what we did is we said, okay, when the user goes into the lobby and they have their username, then what we're going to do is we are going to, okay, so back on the client side, after the user loads up lobby, we are going to request to join the room right here, and then the server is going to try and join the room, and it'll send us back a result if it can. And if that works, then we're going to see the result in our web page here. So let me save all these. All right, and just like before, if all the syntax was right, I should be able to start my server. Let me let it settle out here. And I do node server.js. Okay, I have a typo. My typo is on line 131, so let's take a look at that. Go to 131. Oh, my typo is that I shouldn't have a semicolon at the end of that line. My membership should be num clients plus 1. Just save that, but keep it open in case it doesn't work. And I will try and run that command again. Now the server's running, so I'm going to close my server file. And now if I try and load my lobby should send a request to join the server, to join a chat room, and my server should respond back that I did join. So let's give it a shot. And I will reload. And pretty good. I didn't see a response show up on my web page, which I wanted to see. So what did I get? My client said I joined a room. The server said a website connected. The server said a server received a command join room. The server log message was just joined by anonymous. And so I didn't get back the response that I joined the room. Did I? Oh no. Oh yeah, so the message was sent out correctly here. Okay, so I guess that is what I want to see. Everything looks okay. On the server side, we saw that a website connected to the server. The server received a command. It was join room. Here's the data that the server received, and that indicates that someone joined the room. Meanwhile, on the client side, the client tried to join a room. The client says a website connected to the server says a website connected to the server. The server says the server received a command to join the room, and then the server log message came back. Room was just joined by anonymous. Okay, and if I change this to username DJP3, all that should be joined by DJP3. Great. Okay, so that's great. We just set up the command so that we could join a chat room. That's what we wanted to do in this segment. Thanks for your attention.